Well, it tells us several things. First of all, that Vladimir Zelensky is becoming very alarmed by the fact that Ukraine is being displaced from the center of people's attention, both in the continent of Europe, in Great Britain, also in the United States. Look, we saw a little bit of this with Joe Biden's State of the Union address, where he spoke for almost 75 minutes, and Ukraine only got one of them out of it. So Zelensky is doing the absolute right thing in sort of making himself and his country, the conflict, relevant. But the fact that he's doing that already tells us that Ukraine fatigue is setting in. Number two, the other thing that it tells us is that clearly the conflict in Ukraine is not one of existential importance to NATO, to Europe, to the United States, or to the West. We certainly hear that very often, but if this really were a conflict with existential implications and importance, NATO would be fighting in Ukraine. It's as simple as that, with all of the risks and the potential catastrophe that would entail. That's what you do when something is of existential importance. This is the narrative that Vladimir Zelensky has been voicing in Europe. It will fall onto some ears that will be receptive. But again, I'm afraid that this is being moved to the peripheral edge of European affairs, and short of the Russians doing something stupid and catastrophic, this is still a war of attrition. And unfortunately for the Ukrainians, the Russians simply have much more of a resource to work through.
Andrij, what is your response to what we've just heard there? Is there alarm among Ukrainians, among the Ukrainian leadership, that there could be something like Ukraine fatigue creeping right now?
That is a phrase that has tried to be worked into the public discourse and just hasn't caught on, unfortunately, for our enemy. When we hear people talking about that, all I know is that I talk to legislators, local administrators around the United States, of which we have resolutions and proclamations on a regular basis. The same thing happens all over the United Kingdom. I've never seen in my lifetime, obviously, Ireland being involved in an international conflict, and yet it has come out very forcefully, both at the United States Security Council as also the first ever visit by the Taoiseach to Ukraine this past summer. This conflict has shown that the rest of the world absolutely stands with Ukraine, and it is not just that 1 minute in President Biden's State of the Union address, but it is the additional drawdown that was announced 2 days prior to that statement. It was the phone call between Dmytro Kuleba and Secretary of State Antony Blinken the morning of the State of the Union address, and it is what we're going to hear at the Munich Security Conference next week as well. These are constant reinforcements of the fact that the rest of the world is supporting Ukraine, and it is in fact the enemy of Ukraine that does not have international support, that does not have any other resources to lean on other than state sponsors of terrors,
right,
or their overburdened prison system, which is where they're getting the most of their recruits.